Hello lovely people, welcome to another video. And it's been a while since I've done one of these. Has it been over a year, I think, since the Hitchcock one? But no, it can't have been. Can't have been that long, but it feels like it anyway. I'm going to be doing a director's ranking, and I wanted to do this one because we lost one of our most visionary directors a year ago this week, David Lynch. And since that time, January the 15th, 2025, I've been going back and rewatching all of Lynch's work, from his shorts to his TV shows to, of course, those amazing, unforgettable movies. And yeah, I thought I'd have a go at making one of these ranking videos. Now, as always, this is just an opinion, and it feels almost pointless with a director like Lynch because his films are so varied, so weird and wonderful that I think each film will connect with the viewer in a different way. So I don't think I'm going to be ranking these as in best to worst or worst to best, but more the ones that connected with me the most. So I hope you go into this with that in mind. And if any of these films lower down on the list are your favourites, then I have the ultimate respect for you, because all of David Lynch's films are definitely worth watching. I will say that from the off. Any of these films are definitely worth watching. Okay, so with all that on board, grab yourself a cup of, excuse me, damn good coffee and... So I do have some notes for this. I will try and do it a little bit off the cuff and a bit more conversational because I tend to prefer those videos, but I have written a bit of a blog to go with this. So excuse me if I look down at a piece of paper as we go. But yeah, I wanted to make some notes so I hopefully don't get it wrong or make too many mistakes. But the one thing I will say is that if you're just getting into Lynch, it can be really difficult to know where to start, because he really was like a bit of a Renaissance man. He's not just a director, but he was an artist, a songwriter, a sound designer, a producer, director, I've said that, haven't I? And even a mentor in transcendental meditation. So yeah, there's lots of Lynch to be found. He really was a Renaissance man. He was forever on a quest to capture ideas. And I think one thing that I think you'll see from my reviews here is that he was very much an ideas man and tended to work in short sketches almost. So a lot of his films have these weird little vignettes and sketches throughout them that and don't always follow like a linear pattern from beginning to end. And if you're going into his films with that in mind and just let it wash over you a little bit, not all of it makes sense. People are still debating and have their own ideas about what David Lynch films are about, myself included. But that's half the fun with going into it. So try not to be too logical. His films and TV series are very much, they occupy more than any other director a kind of dream-like state. A lot of his films connect with me on a nightmarish view. They're not quote unquote horror films as such, but as you watch them, there are definitely horrific things in them, and a lot of things that remind me of that dream logic, certainly the logic that happens in my dreams. So that's kind of how to take them, I would say, if you're getting into Lynch for the first time. Don't expect it all to make sense. Don't expect it all to be neat and tidy, because his mind is incredible and doesn't really work in that way. And that's one of the best things about watching his films. My last ranking was Alfred Hitchcock, and he has 53 films. And I did think at first that, this David Lynch one's going to be very quick in comparison. But look, I've already been talking for the longest time, and we haven't even got to the rankings yet. So here we go. We better get on with it. So first up, we have an honourable mention. We have to talk about the shorts that David Lynch made. Now, most of his shorts were made at the beginning of his career. He was an artist first, and I think was he commissioned to make like a moving painting. So yeah, that was really interesting. I think it's called something like six men throwing up or something like that, just to give you an idea of what his shorts are like. But yeah, his shorts are definitely worth watching, but I won't be including them here because it would take too long. But definitely check them all out. I think if you go on Internet Archives and put in David Lynch shorts, I think they're all included there. So you can watch at least the ones he made before he became famous for his films. He did carry on making shorts into his later career as well. I think some of those I haven't watched, so I do need to go back and watch some of those. But yeah, some really interesting ideas, and you can see where the ideas for his films came from watching those shorts. Okay, we start at number 13, and I don't want to talk too much about the films I like less. One, because it feels like I'm being negative, and I don't want to be negative about one of my favourite directors. But one of them had to be at the bottom. And for me, it is Inland Empire. So yeah, apologies to anyone who loves this film. I've watched it twice now, and I have to say I really struggled with it. So, Inland Empire follows an actress who's tasked with remaking an unfinished and cursed film, where the main actors had previously been killed off under strange circumstances. As she gets more involved in the film, the line between the act and the actress become blurred, and her sanity becomes less certain. Yeah, even for a hardcore David Lynch fan, as I would call myself, Inland Empire is a little bit of a struggle. It's 3 hours long. It mostly consists of Laura Dern, the wonderful Laura Dern, walking around looking confused. And yeah, I had to watch it in several sittings, I have to say. Ooh, there's a magpie on the roof. I hope that's not a sign. I don't know how much crossover there is. I'm sure there's some between David Lynch fans and Radiohead fans. But if you imagine The King of Limbs, their album that gets a lot of derision, I kind of see Inland Empire as similar to that. It's the first one, like King of Limbs, where the process seems to overshadow the intention somewhat. So there are some saving graces. I did like the handheld nature of the shots. Laura Dern is excellent, as she always is. I don't think I've ever seen her do a bad performance. And yeah, it gives the handheld camcorder feel, really gives it its own feeling. It gives it this kind of claustrophobic, anxious feeling that helps the film have definitely its own feel. But yeah, this one, to me, in Inland Empire, I kept thinking throughout, this is what it must feel like for people who don't like Lynch films to watch Lynch films. Yeah, because there was nothing for me, very little for me to latch onto throughout. I have only seen it twice. I do need to see it more. But for now, Inland Empire, unfortunately, holds the spot of my lowest on the list. Number 12 is probably most fans' least favourite film on his catalogue, and it is Dune. Not the most recent Dune. I know that's been taken and made into a really classic modern film, but we're talking about David Lynch's Dune from 1984, is it, I think? David Lynch's adaptation of Frank Herbert's epic science fiction novel sees Lynch stretch himself and his craft past the boundaries of what is possible with the financial and technical constraints of what was possible at the time. You've got to admire him for trying, though, definitely. And this is a really impressive feat with a distinctive character to it, which makes it stand out amongst its contemporaries. After Lynch's incredible work on Eraserhead and The Elephant Man around this time, he was seen as a hot property to create lavish and imaginative worlds. So I can understand why he was considered with the impossible job of bringing this novel to life. But it seems like Lynch doesn't really have the reins at times in this film and is being pulled in all directions. So I do admire Dune as a film. I would definitely say, like all his films, it's worth watching, especially if you're a fan of the new one and you want to see a very different adaptation of it. But Dune is perhaps one of David Lynch's weaker films. At number 11, we have the first mention of Twin Peaks, his groundbreaking TV serial, but this is the prequel, Fire Walk with Me, the movie of Twin Peaks. We follow the story from the beginning with the killer of Laura Palmer taking his first life, and Agent Dale Cooper and the FBI investigating the case. Meanwhile, in Twin Peaks, we meet Laura and the other weird and wonderful inhabitants of the town. If you've seen the series, you'll know if you're likely to like this or not. But the film assumes a great deal of prior knowledge. So if you go into this film not knowing the series, you may well be even more confused than normal in a Lynch film. Yeah, I think one of the things I would say with this and with The Return that's coming later is that they maybe lack the charm of the original two series. That kind of trashy soap opera feel that Mark Frost and David Lynch were really trying to sort of pervert and satirize with Twin Peaks is lost a little bit in the film. It's a lot darker in some ways than the series, and you know, if you like that as I do, then there's plenty to like in Fire Walk with Me. The music and the visuals are both stunning. I really love Lynch's use of music, and rather like in Lost Highway, I really liked the kind of industrial, dark, dense soundtrack that him and Angelo, I'm not going to be able to say his name, Angelo Badalamenti, I think that's right, they employ in Fire Walk with Me. Absolutely love the music in this. That's definitely something to like. There are lots of things to like about this film, but criticisms, it does kind of feel like two films forced together with some interesting characters introduced in the first half of the film, who were then kind of like just dropped and you never see them again. But I do quite like how it's just as confusing and opaque as the series itself. So one thing cliche that he doesn't fall for in this is to wrap everything up neatly, because I think if he had have done it, it might have ruined the series a little bit, going back to it. So yeah, there's more questions than answers, as with most Lynch films, and there's a lot to like in Fire Walk with Me, but it's not my favourite of his films. At number 10, yes, we've only got 10 left. Wild at Heart is kind of like his Bonnie and Clyde adventure, with some tributes and nods to Wizard of Oz thrown in. A dark, twisted, erotic, comedic and disturbing film, which I guess is what happens when you give David Lynch a love story to direct. Nicolas Cage is at his crazy best as the free-living murderer on the run, and Laura Dern is also a highly sexed Wizard of Oz obsessed girlfriend in Wild at Heart. In fact, the iconic film is often referenced here. It's an interesting twist on David Lynch's signature perversion of all things Middle American, and this helps to the film both in narration, with Laura Dern's character seeing the Wizard of Oz as her escapism from her abusive past, but also in the way that Wild at Heart takes you off in different dreamlike directions that Lynch does so well. Perhaps the only thing for me that makes it score a little bit lower is I don't really connect with the characters as much in this film as other films on the list. But I do enjoy the film, and I definitely recommend it to any fan of Lynch's weird and wonderful mind. At number 9, we have one that would probably rank lower on most fans' list, but it's one that is a little bit of a comfort watch for me. It is The Straight Story. Alvin Straight is an old gent trying to travel across state to see his estranged brother after he has a stroke. However, he has no other form of transport but an old motorised lawnmower to get there. And rather like the lawnmower, the pace of this film is extremely slow, and if you don't like that sort of thing, if you prefer your films to be a lot more action-packed, then you might not like The Straight Story. But I think if you can turn off that part of your brain and really let The Straight Story take you over, it's a really lovely, heartfelt film. And as the film suggests, the film title suggests, it is much more straightforward. You do have to remind yourself that this is a David Lynch film sometimes. Richard Farnworth, who plays the old gent, he is such a likable character in this that you really feel you're with him every grueling step of the way. And it makes a nice change to hear a story from the point of view of a much older character. So what didn't I like about the film? I think Sissy Spacek, I love her as an actress. I think she's absolutely wonderful in films like Carrie, and so many other performances I've seen her in. But in this one, I don't know, I don't think it is Oscar bait, but it's one of those kind of performances. She plays the daughter of Alvin, and she has like a stutter and a bit of a learning difficulty. And I would have preferred to see an actual actress with learning difficulties play the part, I think. Sissy Spacek does a great job, but I do find her scenes a little bit irksome in this. But there is so much warmth to the straight story, and I think it's probably Lynch's most accessible, straightforward story that he has. So if you're after a good rainy day movie that you can just sit and chill and enjoy a heartwarming tale, this is definitely one for you. And I do enjoy the straight story. At number 8, this is one that I've heard many people say is their favourite, so I will probably get lynched, excuse the pun, in the comments. But at number 8, I have Lost Highway. Again, like Wild at Heart, this is one that I can appreciate but don't return to very often because I don't find the characters as compelling as some of his other ones. That isn't to say it's not worth watching. It really is. It's a great film, but it just doesn't connect with me as much as some of the other ones higher up on this list. Bill Pullman plays a character whose self-identity seems to be unraveling, and as he begins to receive messages and meet strange people who make him question who he really is. After he's accused of murdering his wife, he steps into a completely different life. It's quite slow paced and brooding at first, which won't be to everybody's taste, but it makes an excellent use of the darkness and silence to build tension as your imagination fills in the gaps. It seems to go off on a complete tangent halfway and become a very different film as our main protagonist changes into a completely different actor. And I did find it more confusing and frustrating than entertaining at times. The film seems to explore the idea of identity as in the same way that a lot of Lynch films do, but maybe in a very different way. I did love the contrast between the grimy and industrial feel, supported by an excellent soundtrack again, and a more sickly, fake, glamorous side. For many fans, like I say, this is their favourite Lynch film, and I completely respect and can see why, as there is a lot here to enjoy and unravel. But again, I think I've only seen it 2 or 3 times, and I maybe need to see it again for it to rise up the ranks. We're up to number 7, and the next Twin Peaks. These are completely out of order, of course. There is the most recent from 2017, Twin Peaks: The Return. 25 years after the culture-shifting show, Mark Frost and David Lynch team up again to create a new show set in the Twin Peaks universe. We return to the central character of FBI agent Dale Cooper, who's become trapped in the alternate reality of the Red Room for a quarter of a century and has had all his character and faculties drained from him as a result. During the interim years, an evil doppelganger, which has taken the form of Dale, has been living in our world, spreading his evil on a wider canvas than Twin Peaks. There is also another doppelganger called Dougie, who's out in the real world, living much more of a haphazard, clueless, yet benign existence. Dale manages to escape his 25-year captivity, but is rendered catatonic by his ordeal and unwittingly takes on Dougie's life when Dougie is killed and Dale is mistaken for him in his absence. Over the following 18 episodes, we are introduced to many new characters and places, as well as revisiting some old ones, in a cacophony of ideas, visuals, and story arcs, which eventually pick up a thread about an even bigger evil spirit seeping into our world and making anyone who tries to investigate it disappear. I hesitate to call this a follow-up because if you're expecting the same show that came before, you may well be left disappointed. This obviously has strands that continue, but it bears little in common to the first two series. The location's rarely in Twin Peaks itself, it's mostly in Las Vegas. Many of the most important characters are completely changed, and the show is even more dark and impenetrable. It's not only different in style to the original 90s show, but I'd argue it's different in style to any TV show that's come before or since. The return is fascinating, it's fragmented, and it's frustrating in equal measure. And although it took me a lot longer to like the third series, I immediately admired the scope and ingenuity of Lynch and Frost here. The horror of the original is really ramped up with some truly incredible visuals and terrifying visions. Like quite a few of Lynch's films, especially his later films, it relies more on kind of sketches and disconnected ideas. And rather like the prequel, it can lack quite a lot of the charm of the original series. But like a lot of Lynch's work, if you're prepared to put in the hard work, and some of the return is hard work, then this is one of the most spellbinding series he's ever created. And taken on its own merits, it really is incredible to watch. I think one of the things that helped me with watching The Return is that I read a review that said that whilst the first two series are Lynch and Frost's take on crime dramas and TV serials, The Return is kind of like their comment on trying to recapture magic. And I think they purposely play against this. So you'll find that a lot of the characters who are the strongest in the first two series become very, very different and fragile versions of themselves in the second. I'm thinking mostly of Dale Cooper himself, who kind of walks around in a zombified state through most of the series, which is very frustrating on the first watch. And you've got characters like Audrey as well, who is very anxiety ridden and just not herself in this as well. And yeah, that took a bit of getting used to, but I think taken on its own merits, like I say, when you rewatch it with that in mind, that this is its own thing, and it's not trying to be the same, which I think if it had have tried to be, as we all probably wanted it to be, it might not have worked as well. This is his idea of trying to warp our expectations of what a return to a classic show should be. And in that, it's quite interesting. If you go into it with that attitude, it is quite interesting seeing how he twists things, our expectations, and intrigues us with new ideas of what we had come to expect. But yeah, going back to those characters, I think one of the things that I love the most about The Return is Cal MacLachlan. He is wonderful in this show. He plays three very distinct roles and does it in such a way that I personally forgot that it was him playing the same role. It was the same actor playing three different roles. His evil Cooper is one of the most sinister characters I've seen on television. You forget that it is such a lovable person as Cal MacLachlan playing him. He's really quite sinister and terrifying. So yeah, I hope it doesn't come across that I dislike this show. I struggle with it. I certainly struggle. The first time I watched it, I don't think I liked it at all. I think I've watched the whole thing through about 3 or 4 times now, and it has become a favourite of mine to return to. And yeah, if you sort of take it as its own creature, there is a lot to love about Twin Peaks: The Return. You can tell that David Lynch has definitely been given carte blanche to bring his ideas to screen, and he really goes for it in The Return. So yeah, check it out. Maybe watch the first 2 seasons first, then the prequel, and then this one. But yeah, don't expect it to be anything like any of those that came before, and just try and love it for what it is. a real piece of art on television that you often think, how did this get made? And that in itself is worth looking into, isn't it? And following on from that, at number 6, we have the second series of Twin Peaks. Now, whilst the first series is consistently incredible, the second series suffers from a couple of obstacles, really, which make fans like it slightly less. Firstly, it goes from having 8 episodes in the first season to having 21, 22 in the second, which is a huge amount of time difference, really, to keep your attention and keep the story intriguing and gripping. The second thing that it struggles with is that the production company kind of forced David Lynch's hand into revealing who the killer was of Laura Palmer about halfway through. Now that show in itself, that episode in itself, is one of the best of Twin Peaks ever. It's such an incredible reveal. However, it's about halfway through, and then he's got to try and scramble for another main arc, and it doesn't work as well, I think. Once you know who the killer is, a lot of the mystery and intrigue goes out of it. And another thing that happens in the second series is that it just branches out into far too many directions. Lynch went off to make Wild at Heart about halfway through the series, and a lot of other directors took up the mantle, and it feels really inconsistent as a result, which is understandable. It just goes off in lots of different directions. A lot of them are kind of not as interesting, not as compelling. I mean, the whole James Hurley storyline, you just want to skip it. It's really bad. There's the sort of Nadine super strength story as well, which goes nowhere. I enjoy it a lot. Don't get me wrong. I do love, it is number 6 on my list, so I must love it. And I think if you were to condense the series down to like the same amount, about eight episodes, it would be on a level with the first series for sure. There are at least 8 episodes. I think like the first 7 or so episodes of the season in a row are just as good as the first season, and the finale is probably one of the best pieces of television you could ever see. It's incredible. It really is. Like that denouement with Dale fighting for Laura and Annie at the end is just immense. It's such an incredible end to the show, before the return came 25 years later, of course. So yeah, please don't judge the second season by some rather wonky webs that branch out. Is that enough mixed metaphors for you? Just see it as the culmination of a wonderful writer and director continuing to create the most compelling television and changing the map for every television season, drama or science fiction show that came afterwards. We're into the top 5, and at number 5 is his first proper feature film, Eraserhead. On his first proper feature film, he riffs on the anxieties of a young man living in a dehumanizing, bleak and grey industrial backdrop. This includes trying to bond with his girlfriend's strange parents and bringing up a bag of alien bones and the singing voices of the lady in the radiator. Hey, this is David Lynch after all. What were you expected? The young director shows that he's a creative force to be reckoned with in this sublimely surrealist parable about the anxieties of young fatherhood and the perils of finding your identity in an oppressive environment. It's easy to discount Eraserhead at the end of Lynch's career. After years of world building and creating his own distinctive style and approach. Yet when Eraserhead came out, it must have totally blown people away, both theatre audiences and film critics alike. Critics were no doubt left scratching their heads about what Eraserhead was all about, or the kind of story that this young upstart was trying to tell. But those in the industry with an open mind saw Lynch as the next true auteur and came banging at his door for his follow-up projects like The Elephant Man and Dune as a result. Eraserhead still remains one of the most singular and powerful imaginative works of the man behind it. We're into the top 4 now, and with any of these kind of lists I could probably swap any of these last 4 for the top spot, depending on what day you catch me. But at number 4 it is many people's favourite, Mulholland Drive. In many ways, Mulholland Drive can be seen as the peak of David Lynch's creative muse, as it incorporates the very best storytelling, visual spellbinding, and philosophical brilliance of his works up until this point. The story tells the tale of a thriving actress who meets a beautiful woman who has lost her memory after a car crash. It deals with dream logic, aspirations, and identity in the most compelling and gripping way imaginable. Lynch again uses mainly sketches of ideas rather than long story arcs to create moments that will stay in your head forever. All I have to say is Cafe Monster, and anyone who's watched Mulholland Drive will know exactly what I mean. Naomi Watts is absolutely wonderful throughout Mulholland Drive, and you can't help but be supportive of her character, even as all its flaws become more and more apparent. There is a dreamlike feeling to the film that captivates and sweeps you up and sucks you into its world. A truly wonderful piece of art from the weaver of dreams himself. I would definitely suggest you check out Mulholland Drive. Into the top 3 now, and at number 3 we have I think the film that I saw first in David Lynch's filmography. It is The Elephant Man. It's the true story of Joseph Merrick, whose deformities made him resident in a Victorian freak show, until he was taken under the wing of curious surgeon Frederick Treves and given the opportunity to experience a much kinder life. I've always been fascinated with Joseph Merrick, the Elephant Man, from a very young age. After reading a book about him in my 20s, I think it was, about his life and those around him, one thing that comes through time and time again is the strength of heart that the man had beneath his disfigured shell. People are often surprised that Elephant Man came out in the early 80s, such as the timeless quality it has, and also the use of black and white cinematography that Lynch uses. It works so well with The Elephant Man. I can't imagine the sort of smoky, smoggy streets of London looking quite as memorable in colour. So yeah, The Elephant Man's a funny one, really. It would definitely be in my top 10 films probably of all time, but I often forget who's involved with it. I forget that John Hurt plays Joseph Merrick in this because of course he's under such heavy prosthetics, but it is possibly my favourite performance of him, and I often forget that it's a David Lynch film, even though it's one of my favourites of his. So it doesn't always have the same kind of style. There are some bits of it, like the introduction where he's dreaming about his mother, that is very Lynchian. But apart from that, it's much more straightforward and much more accessible than some of his weirder films. But yeah, a lot of people maybe discount Elephant Man as a result, don't tend to rank it as highly, but because it is different from a lot of David Lynch's well-known signature. But Elephant Man is one of those films that I return to again and again and find something new to love. What a wonderful film this is, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone who wants to see not only David Lynch's films, but some of the best and most sympathetic filmmaking there has ever been. At number 2 is the last film on this list, so you'll probably guess what's going to be at number 1, but it is Blue Velvet. I absolutely love Blue Velvet. Teenager Jeffrey, played by Lynch stalwart Kyle MacLachlan, finds a severed human ear in the fields around his sleepy hometown, which then starts him on a very dark journey of psychopaths, drugs and murder. What I love about David Lynch is that he creates a world that is almost like experiencing a dream, taking the seemingly logical and twisting it into a chilling world of his own unique mind. In a precursor to the ideas of Twin Peaks, Blue Velvet delves the depths of depravity that hide just beneath the surface of the American dream, ripping off the facade of idealism and sterility of 1950s picture postcard America and revealing the seedy underbelly that could be just one doorstep away. It's incredibly ahead of its time as far as what was acceptable in mainstream cinema in the mid-1980s. Once again, Lynch proves that he's a one-off in the film industry with his harrowing film, which is equal parts stylish and brutal. That's Blue Velvet at number 2 in the list. So just before we get to number 1, I just want to say a big thank you for watching this far. I hope you enjoy this video. I hope it's not made you too furious in the comments below. Please keep your comments kind. Like I said, this is just a very personal opinion. I love all of Lynch's films and can find something intriguing in all of them. So if your list is very different to this, I totally respect that. If you'd like to see more film critiques, or as well as some of the other things that I do on this channel, which is show my love of everything retro, from Doctor Who to classic films to retro video games, etc., then make sure to subscribe down below and like this video, and maybe even share it with a friend if you think they'd enjoy it too. Right, we are on to number 1, and it is, if you haven't already guessed, the first season of the wonderful Twin Peaks. In 1990, the traditional television as we knew it was tipped on its axis by the first small screen project of film director David Lynch. Along with writing partner Mark Frost, Lynch managed to weave an unnerving picture of a small town with an underlying evil into a highly watchable and intriguing weekly show. Equal parts soap opera and expressionist folktale, Twin Peaks was like nothing audiences had seen before, and changed the face of drama in ways that would influence other popular cult shows that would come afterwards, such as The X-Files, Lost, and American Horror Story. The scope, but also the popularity, made it much easier for more inventive shows to be given the green light, and television would never be quite the same after Twin Peaks. The main story concerns an all-American girl called Laura Palmer, who washes up dead on the shores of the local beach, wrapped in plastic and showing signs of the most grisly of murders. The usually slow, quiet town is rocked to its core by this unthinkable crime. Into the story comes eccentric FBI agent Dale Cooper to investigate the killing, which carries many of the hallmarks of another murder that he's been investigating. As he delves deeper into the mystery, he discovers that under the small provincial facade of Twin Peaks town lies many different dangerous characters and suspects. And even more alarming is a malignant evil that rests in the woods around the town, infecting its people with its murderous spirit. Although David Lynch's work features some of the most horrific and disturbing scenes committed to film, the moral heart which underpins all of his films and programmes is uncompromising and almost childlike in the best possible of ways. There are binary forces of the most extreme evil and the most benevolent good, and rarely a middle ground to be trod. In Twin Peaks, though, Lynch and Frost explore the artifice and fragility of small town values and characters, as each person's true natures are tested by the tragedy of a murdered girl. Lynch has said in interviews that he was inspired to make Twin Peaks from seeing the triviality of victims as they were portrayed in crime dramas. Instead of a victim being a MacGuffin, a tool which was only there just as a puzzle for the detective to solve, Lynch wanted to show the true and real grief and destructive repercussions that the death of one person can cause. Laura Palmer is the epicenter around which everyone else's stories and arcs develop. He takes the ideas of Blue Velvet, in which the poster of the American dream is punctured and shows the ugliness beneath, to tell a story about how the brutality of one action can lead to the unravelling of a town and a mystery to grow. There's never been a television show like Twin Peaks, and with all its inventive conception, television and film have never been the same since, and the ripples of this programme and its creators continue to be felt to this day. And there we have it. What did you think of my ranking of the wonderful David Lynch? Really, really difficult director to rank, because, as I said at the beginning, They're all unique and intriguing in their own way, each of his films and television series. And I could understand the point of view of any of these films being ranked at the top. So really difficult to do, but it's just an excuse to talk about one of my favorite directors, who we sadly lost a year ago this week. Let me know in the comments below, what are your favorite David Lynch works? Is it one of his shorts? Is it one of his TV programs? Is it one of his films? Which is your favorite to return to again and again? And also let me know which directors you'd like me to rank next. Which ones would you like me to look further into? Okay, that's it for now. I hope you've enjoyed that quick look at the works of a visionary director, David Lynch. And thanks as always for watching my video. Take care and see you again on the next one.